my hope was that I would show it in a gallery and I can envision it and I'd be like, that would be amazing. And it happened, like I did that thing, but while I was making it, it took me 2 years to complete and I wasn't focused on that. I was just making the work. I had a gallery's curator who has been following me reach out. She wanted to show my work. And then ever since then, I've had, solo shows with it and has been featured in other things. So opportunities have happened with it, but like it's cool to think back that when I was first making that work, it was only because, this is how it's always been with art for me. It's like you were talking about, it's for me. I'm making it for me. This is my experience translating into a physical. That's the purpose. That's the drive. Other stuff could come later. It could happen. It could not happen, whatever. But like, this is what I imagine. And I think it's important to give space for those ideas and those things to really be with you and sit with you. I think about how some of these ideas that I've only recently had to make this new body of work, whatever it is, was from me spending more time with myself to play. I was like lighting incense and dancing in my room. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I have an idea. I don't know if I just opened up a portal because I actually am starting to give myself self-care and things that I need spiritually, mentally, physically. But the moment I started to like open up that space to do that, I felt like I was just like a portal to receive these ideas.
Help Me See is a podcast dedicated to the art of seeing. It's a space for the restless visionary with an insatiable desire to create the life and work you're meant for. My name is Bianca Mora, and I'm a photographic artist, a mother, and a coach who's transformed my fear of loss into power, art, and philosophy. One of the scariest quotes I never want to say is, "I wish I knew at the time." But I truly believe that we have the innate ability to bring our wise 20/20 hindsight to our now. You can deeply experience your nostalgia now while it's actually happening with no regrets. All you have to do is see. In this show, we laugh, we cry, we get inspired, we overshare. We have life-changing conversations around making meaning, self-discovery, and shedding all of the BS layers in order to reconnect to our own sacred vision. Seeing yourself is an essential key to living powerfully. You are the vessel, the lens that filters absolutely everything in your life. What are you filtering for? Whether it be conversations with fellow artists and visionaries or my solo audio journal style introspective ramblings, each episode is meant to feel like an exhale, an unraveling of truth, a moment for you to be able to put your finger on something that you haven't been able to for far too long. Come exactly as you are. It's perfect. Honor your instincts. Let's uncover some of the most important things in our lives, which all too often can slip out from our view. Let's commit to seeing and consciously creating what only you can in your one and only life. Let's dive in. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Help Me See. Today on the show, I have a special conversation, artist to artist, with the amazing Morgan Bukovec. She is a multimedia, multi-passionate artist that is really an example of being in the world that helps me to feel okay. More okay. I think it's really important to have these super candid and honest conversations because life as an artist can feel isolating enough. I've personally been going through a bit of a tough time recently, and I've just come to this crux where, and this knowing of, if I want to keep my work sacred, I have this craving to completely separate it from any expectations or hopes or intentions of expecting it to bring an income to me. Like that's just full stop. And let me be clear, I'm not saying that that's wrong. I'm not saying that I shouldn't be. I'm not saying, I am just saying I've come to the point in my, it's been 3 years, 3.5 years, 3 years since I got laid off and I decided to go all in on this. And I am feeling that in order to keep it feeling as delicious as it always has felt for me to be in this work, I need to start looking elsewhere for some more sustainable income for my family. And with that, also have a knowing that I don't want another full-time job because I'm full-time committed to this work that I'm doing. So for the first time ever, I'm looking for part-time work that's completely separate from, industry, whatever industry that I went to school for. And there's something so freeing about that. But I'm also uncomfortable because I've never done that before. And I love talking to Morgan because she's a lifelong artist. She is doing gallery shows. She organizes events for other artists. She's holding space for so many other artists. She's doing all the things. And also she has been a part-time worker her whole life. She said at one point she's even had 4 part-time jobs at once. And this notion of just holding things loosely so that there's more space for that play. And I don't know about you, but I have a really hard time with the word play. And I don't know, whenever I'm in Morgan's presence and I sense her authenticity and her heart, I feel so refreshed and I feel lighter. And I'm so happy that we were able to have this conversation, and I hope it's the first of more to come because I feel like we have a lot of common threads together. We both have a really deep-seated belief in the importance of community and connection and knowing that when something is personal enough, it is also universal. In this conversation, we go all around. We talk about some of her work, her exploring new materials, her experience in having other people open up to her with their stories after seeing her work. And, she holds space for other artists in a membership community as well called Lava Lamp Lounge, where they work together. And it's just really, really, really lovely to connect with another like-minded soul that is just choosing to do life differently and also has the same fears and moments of doubt and skepticism and, and all of that because, I sit here and I do this work and I share my heart week after week after week. And I know I'm not alone, but also I feel alone. When you're not something, but then also you feel like you are. That's where I'm at. So anyway, I am currently in San Francisco on work right now. And when I go back home, I will be exploring what a different way of life can look like. And really, I'm quite energized about it. I'm thinking about what will this mean? What might it look like to be in my work when I have an increased feeling of safety financially? What might it look like to have some form of schedule where I know like this, from this time to this time, there's work happening that's completely separate from my identity. And then I'm free in these other areas so that I can fully dive in and commit. So anywho, if you are in a moment of life where you're feeling stuck, or if you're just feeling like you're on this treadmill, I meant to say hamster wheel, but either way, that you just keep taking step after step after step, but you don't necessarily love where you're going, perhaps this conversation might be eye-opening. Perhaps this might be the validation you didn't know you needed for thinking about what life could look like. And Yeah, I know you're going to love Morgan. She's the best. If you want to learn more about her, check out the show notes. I'm going to put her links there. And without further ado, here's my conversation with the amazing, multi talented, multi passionate, multimedia artist, Morgan Bukovec. First of all, thank you so much. I'm so excited to have this conversation with
I
you.
know. I know. It's been a long time coming. I feel like we've got some juicy things to chat about.
Yeah, I remember like back in San Francisco when I first voxed you, and I was like, oh, I can't wait to get home to talk to her. And then, of course, life. And it's been what, 6 months or more later. If you want to give a little quick intro about yourself, what
Sure.
you're doing, what you're up to, and then we'll just
Yeah.
dive into our combo.
Dive into all of it. Yes. So hello, listeners. Hi. But yeah, my name is Morgan Bukovic, and right now I'm living south of Columbus. I'm a mixed media artist, and I also host workshops and I run an online art community called Lava Lamp Lounge. It is fully like online. We meet every Monday on Zoom just to make art and hold each other accountable. I also have a support group for artists that is on Zoom that anyone could join. The whole thing is that it's like free, accessible, and available to whoever would like to, yeah, be a part of it. So it's called Lava Lamp Lounge. And we just had our first ever in-person meetup the other night, and it was awesome. It was so cool. It was
How
just fun.
many people were local?
There's there's probably like 5 to 8, maybe 10 people that are local. People just keep like bringing friends, and I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, it's
So I was
awesome.
like, we should have an in-person, like making art, eating food, hanging out thing. And we did this little activity where I don't know if you've seen this. I feel like I've seen this before. It's how I got the idea, but we each had like a blank sketchbook page or paper. And we spent 5 minutes like doing whatever on it, like anything, right? We had like paints, all this stuff. And then every 5 minutes we like switched it to a different person and
Oh,
like just kept going around. And it was so fun. And we actually made some really cool stuff. But yeah, either way, it was great to like meet up in person. And I just love that. I love bringing together community and people. I also host a market called Lakeside Flea on Lake Erie. This year we have over 100 vendors, and yeah,
whoa.
it's going to be a big one. So that's been cool. I've been in that like vending as an artist business myself and showing in galleries and all that good stuff. So yeah, a lot of things rolling. I also just received a grant to do like this 2-day art exhibition. And so that will be really cool to do in Columbus. But yeah, I feel like I really enjoy bringing together community, doing events, making art, talking about art and the artist journey. Always so interesting to me.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
very linked in that way, and I'll share the reason for this revival of our conversation. Is a few weeks ago, Morgan had posted something about uh, being okay with, and you correct me because I'm summarizing, and who knows, my brain is mashed potatoes right now, but being okay with the not knowing, and this idea of longing for something that is an ideal or something that you experienced in the past that you want to get back to, but also not knowing exactly how it's going to flush out. And
Mhm.
also the extreme highs and I'd say extreme lows of being a working artist
Yeah.
in this world. It's really, really hard, and how we want to keep our work sacred and feeling really good. And also, like, what does it mean to put that expectation of like it provides me financial support or it doesn't? And what does it mean to fill your time, other time, with how you support yourself financially with something that doesn't drain you to the point where you don't do your art? And what is that dance? And
Yeah.
all
Like
of it. And
catching
I
yourself before the burnout hits and reminding yourself of certain things.
exactly that's
And
exactly where I am
then,
right now. Hmm.
yes, yes, for sure. I've been thinking about that a lot. And yeah, actually, I wrote that journal entry, and then I was invited to a poetry night, like an open mic thing. I've never been to one. I was excited to go just to like listen. And there was two people there. And so they like looked at me and they're like, you have to read something. And I was like, okay. Well, I guess I just wrote something in my journal today. I don't think it's poetry, but I'll read it.
What a good sport. I'm
Yeah. And so
Way
after
to rally.
right, right. I was like, whatever. I'll take a chance. I'll step on this mic. There's two
Um,
people there, or whatever. But yeah, I read this journal entry and I even said, like, this is not a poem. Like, and after people were clapping and they're like, that's poetry. And I'm like, what? Like, okay, that's pretty cool. So it made me rethink about like some of my writing. But yeah, the whole poem was about poem. The whole thing was just about like longing for a place, longing for I was living in Europe, so I was like longing, thinking about all these memories, this inspiration, this whole state of living I was in for a short period of time, and how like longing for that is like sad in a way, but also is also reminding me like, okay, thinking about that or putting my energy into thinking about that, like longing and longing for it is actually distracting me from like being in the present moment of where I am and how like I need to just sit in a place of gratitude and be like, yes, this happened. This shaped me in all these amazing ways. And yeah, as a creative, like you mentioned, and I can only speak for myself, but like I'm highly sensitive to emotions, to the highs, to the lows. Like that high sensitivity is what makes our artwork sacred and beautiful, but it also can hit us so emotionally depending on the day, at least for me. And so, like, yeah, through that journal entry, I was like, okay, I'm okay. I'm longing for this, but it's also distracting me from being here. So all I could do is like sit in a place of gratitude and like be here now. And like, what does that mean? So it's been something I've been thinking about a lot more lately, listening to like a creative act by Rick Rubin and like these ideas of meditation and presence and the sensitivities and the long, like all that stuff. I've been thinking about a lot in here and like
right.
trying to, like you said, even like catching yourself before the burnout, giving yourself a day off, whatever this looks like, rest, all this stuff. So, oh, yeah. And I'm glad that you like, I feel like it did touch some people. Like they reached out to me and messaged me, like, wow, like, yes, I feel this. And it was just that, just having it be heard too is another thing. It's okay. I'm not the only one here that's just like, I'm okay. I have no idea where I'm going to be in 6 months at all.
Mhm.
That's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Speaking it out. It's funny because it does both, to me, it does both at the same time. Speaking it out, like lets the air out. So as the pressure cooker, but it empowers at the same time. So it weakens and strengthens in both ways. It's empowering. You're like, okay, there, I said it. I just said it. Even if it doesn't do anything or someone doesn't message me saying thank you or whatever, I said it. I got it like out of me. And that was brave or that was, I don't know, empowering in whatever way. But it also lets the air out. Okay, now I don't have this deep seated feeling that's festering in my core of my being. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that I've had that longing feeling. I think I may have posted a long time ago. I don't know, maybe a year ago or something, where that longing feeling I feel like I've always longed for something that I don't know what. Always, like since I was a little girl, I don't know what, and it only goes away when I'm creating something. And
Mhm.
I think that I don't know what it is, but I think that feeling has always made me automatically feel it an urgency in keeping what I do uh for me. And although, of course, I want to be of very deep service to my clients, it's also like I will, it would be, what's the word? It would not be aligned to work with someone that wasn't exactly wanting what I have to offer. So I'm not going to be like flexible in that term, but I'm also very flexible and open to whatever someone's truth is. Right. So in that, coming back to the making a living, I hate that. We need to figure out some different term, but making money versus, keeping that sacred. I found that I need to not take my industry and my trade or my craft and be like, okay, what else can I take pictures of? Because
Mhm.
I know that that's going to suck that that pool that I have for that. So that's why I've like, okay, I will do art direction or I will do whatever in order to preserve that. And for a while that felt great. And I'm coming to the point now where it's starting to feel drained in another way. So now I'm like, maybe I go completely left field. Like maybe I do something that's like part time, totally somewhere random, like whether it's a yoga studio, whether it's whatever.
Yeah.
I just found that right now I'm feeling very unsafe in every area of my life. Like
Mm.
I've just been feeling like I'm out in that void and it doesn't feel good. And my first instinct is like, how do I protect my work? Because that's a scary place to be in.
Right, exactly. And I think that I think about how I've only worked part-time jobs. And in that way, I've worked so many different ones. And like right now, I'm working at a coffee shop and it's still service industry. It's still like whatever, but it's very different than like restaurant service, bar industry. And I'm actually really enjoying the work because the company as well has a lot of core values like working with the farmers and the communities that are picking the like their whole mission is in like kind of farm to table but coffee industry. And I'm like, wow, I believe in this and it feels good to come in here. It feels purposeful and I could still do things on the side like journal, open up my computer, send some emails, make a post, whatever it is, like with my art. But I'm still like making something, that's consistent, that's rolling in. And I found like working those jobs that is separate from like the studio, the artwork. It's like, yeah, it's that consistent flow. And it's also like a break. Like I even find inspiration from strangers that come in or conversations or people that I talk to. And I'm like, wow, I'm like having a job where you're like finding those little inspiring moments. It's nice. Like I've always envisioned like, oh, it'd be cool to work in like a florist space or like a place like that. So I totally get that. As a part-time worker fully. But there also is a lot of or could be like influxes and consistencies. Like I've been in lots of states of transition and states of a transition could just be challenging in a lot of different ways. So yeah, I've been trying to just like feel settled in that unsettledness in a way.
Hmm. Feeling settled in the unsettled. Yeah, that's huge. I'm curious though. You said you've always been a part-time worker. Like, what do you think stemmed or like initiated that as even an option for you? Because it's so funny because subconsciously you don't see that as an option unless you've seen it somewhere else. I mean, that never even entered my mind. Like coming out of college, not even as a. I just never thought of it as a thing. So why was that your go-to?
Yeah. So when I graduated with I had my fine arts degree, but I also had an art education degree. And everyone in my field was like, I'm going to be an art teacher. And I was like, oh, like, I don't know if I want to do that. Like, maybe I want to work in museums. Maybe I want to work in galleries. There are other options. So I started interning. I started working part-time. I've had even at one point like 4 part-time jobs, like total at once. Like just like doing a lot of different things because I also felt like it was like dipping my toes in all these waters. Like learning about event planning and working at a museum, learning about how to talk with art and talk to strangers about art and doing programming, but then also working at like a bar and dealing with humans and dealing with like that, but learning customer service, like all of these things I feel like have definitely taught a lot of skills. But yeah, when I got out of school, I just wanted to like try on a different shoe, like try on a lot of different things. I also wanted to move to Europe, so I did that, and then coming back, picking up part-time work. Also like substitute teaching since I have my education degree. I also have like connected being like if I was to be an art teacher, like which is what my degree is honored for, right? But like I feel as though that feels so constricting, at least right now. I'm like, I don't know where I'm going to live. Like, I'm not going to live here for a set number of years. I don't want to live here for a year and then leave the school and be like, bye bye. Like, no, like I kind of want to move back to Europe, but I also kind of want to get into an RV and like do all this stuff. And my partner and I have talked about what would it be like to buy a sailboat and live on a sail. Like just there's so many different things and options. And I have no idea how those will unfold. So I think part-time work has been very flexible in that way. And being able to like find this specific coffee shop job that is like also values community and art and stuff like that has been really aligned with where I'm at right now. But yeah, part-timing, anyone who wants to talk about part-timing work, let me know because your girl has been at it for probably my whole life. my whole life. But yeah, but
We're about to sidebar on this after this recording hits stop.
yes, for sure.
Help me.
Help
Um,
me. But then, yeah, working part time at a yoga studio, like give me some of those free yoga classes,
yeah, yeah.
you know.
What I love so much about that instinct to do that, though, is that, well, one of the things that I find the most in beautiful and intriguing is when human beings like find these intersections in different worlds that are not intuitively connected, or maybe intuitively is the only way they're connected, but like when you go to school and get a degree, these are the classes for this and these are the classes for this. And it's just I love, and listen, I loved my college experience, but also like there are things where I'm like, who the fuck made the rule that photography majors cannot minor in graphic design, but graphic design majors can minor in
Oh,
photography? Like just dumb shit.
yeah.
I'm like, okay, come on. One of my favorite things is like these intersections. So right now I find myself at this point in my life, like the intersection of wellness and consciousness and photography and like art and photography as a medium, but also how it's inconsequential. Like I love this idea of how I'm obsessed with it, but also I know it means nothing. Like I just am really obsessed with this. And I have these ideas of like, oh, I'd love to make a school that is like curriculum is like a buffet, right? Like a la carte, like this and this and this, because the human beings that are made from that are amazing and so fascinating. And what you're doing right now is, or what you've always been doing is like this line of work, this line of work, this line of work. And like it is all fusing together into your artwork. It's giving you something
Yeah.
to respond to. It's giving you inspiration. It's giving you those feelings of like, even the shit that's bad, you're just like, okay. Like that's to me is the most clarifying because I tend to be very open. I'm like, oh, I like that. I like that. But if I come across something I don't feel good about, that's a hard stop in my stomach. So I
Sure.
just love this idea of like treating life as a buffet. And I think
Mhm.
inherently it can be looked at as a very unsafe, unstable,
Yeah.
unreliable way of life.
Right.
But that's what sucks, right? Because it's assumed that that's unsafe and unstable, but really to me the scariest thing can be, depending on the person, is when you're in that stable job and you are feeling so ferociously unfulfilled, but you don't even have a frame of reference and seeing a way to get off that train. That
Right.
to me is the scariest thing. I've said I've taken like neurolinguistic programming training and knowing about the neural pathways and how like it's just such a slippery slope. Quite often you don't even see the turn, you don't even see it as a possibility. So for me, I'm not even, i'm not I'm less afraid of like knowing something's an option and not taking it than I am not even knowing it's an option. That
Ooh.
fucks me up.
Yeah. Wow. And as you were speaking, one thing I was just like who created these rules? Who who is this just like
And do we
right?
subscribe to what they subscribe to?
Right. And no, it reminded me of like one time I was getting interviewed for this article in an art magazine and I was mentioning that I'm a vendor. I do markets. I also organize markets. I'm also an artist showing in galleries. I'm also a community, like I'm also doing this community stuff. Like I'm all of these things. I'm doing this stuff. And he was just like, he's like, that could be like a really weak point for people to view you as not just an artist working with fine art, but you're also doing all this other stuff. And I'm thinking like, huh, like who said that? Why would that be a weak thing? Like, is it because I'm not just this? Because I think like it makes me think about identity and there's so many different facets to who we are as beings. And there shouldn't be rules about, I am this type of artist and that's all I am. This is all I do. Like I think to your point, like being open to receive, open to your who you are and what you do and what you could do is everything. That's huge. And I really hated that he said that. I think that's like a very traditional mindset and it doesn't like disregard all the things that I've like worked for and done and everything. It's just like I'm multifaceted and like everyone is and could be and will be, like so yeah, it just makes me think about those rules and who sets these things and oh my gosh, like even with the neural pathways, how interesting. Like just the fear of, okay, this is out here. I just need to take the step to do it. But then that other part of your brain that's like doesn't even know that exists.
Oh,
That's
doesn't even know. It's like the one Haley Carr was the instructor, and she said the map is not the territory. So it's like if you think about going a little deep into the quantum realm, everything that's available to us, we don't even see with the human eye. And you can go that far with it, but even just opportunities and things in front of your physical fucking face. Your model of reality is a flashlight in this huge abyss of black. Even think about a forest at night,
yeah.
and you could only see what's in front of you, and each step you take you can see a little, but only after you take the step, right? And in that
Yeah.
funnel of light is being filtered by your experiences, your beliefs, your
Mhm.
meta programming, how you were raised, your all of this stuff. So
Whoa.
it's crazy. There's this thing where it's have
That's
you done
nuts.
the thing where it's look around you, and in 5 seconds count as many red things as you can possibly see. All right, go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How many red things? Stop looking.
One. I'd won.
How many purple things? Nothing. You didn't look. You're not
Ah,
looking for it, and it makes perfect sense all the time. But that stuff just blows my mind. So I think about that, and then I think about the people who made these rules. Are they that deeply aware? So my question to you, going back to what you
yeah.
said about how that dude said that, in that moment, like, did you recognize, like, what the fuck? Or was it something that took a while for you to reflect on? Because those comments, those like off kilter comments,
Yeah.
can change the trajectory of someone's life. And
Right.
that pisses me off so much.
Yeah. Like it really made me think like I could see where he could be coming from. Like, right, if I dedicate this amount of time to all of this, then that could be less time for me making a body of work or all this stuff, right? But and how like people could in the art world, which what like in the art world, if I don't even know where he was getting all this from, maybe his experience, who knows? But if a art director or curator or gallery owner sees my work, but then also sees that I'm making stickers and making mugs to sell and vending and doing all this thing, like people maybe from their own experience could be like, oh, she's not a real artist. She just does this and does, but also makes bodies of work. But I guess it's just, it kind of made me like thinking about it now, it kind of is just laughable. It didn't really like stick with me, hit me hard, other than just my work is important and thinking about what body of work I'm interested in making or what I just really what ideas I have. Because when I think about even bodies of work, it's really following an idea, experimenting, and seeing what happens from that. Right. And right now I'm working on a body of work from an idea that I had. And I just so happened to like be a part of a ceramic studio. So like that's my medium, working with porcelain, and which is the first time I'm working with porcelain. I'm showing this work at I have like a solo show next year for it. So I actually have like a place and a thing that I'm showing it for. I have like a destination and a goal. But even even if I didn't, like my past body work that I made about the service industry, like I did not have like my hope was that I would show it in a gallery and I can envision it and I'd be like, that would be amazing. And it happened. Like I did that thing, but while I was making it, it took me 2 years to complete. And I wasn't like focused on that. I was just making the work. Like, I'm going to make 100. That's my goal. I made 100. In that 2 years of time, I had a gallery curator who has been following me reach out. She wanted to show my work. And then ever since then, I've had, solo shows with it and has been featured in other things and stuff like that. So opportunities have happened with it. But like, it's cool to think back that when I was first making that work, I it was only because I mean, this is how it's always been with art for me. It's like you were talking about, it's for me. I'm making it for me. This is my experience translating into a physical. That's the purpose. That's the drive. Other stuff could come later. It could happen. It could not happen, whatever. But like this is what I imagine. And I think it's important to give space for those ideas and those things to really be with you and sit with you, even at an emotional scale, at least for me, like even going back to this guy saying this, I don't know. I think about how some of these ideas that I've only recently had to make this new body of work, whatever it is, but like was from me spending more time with myself to play. I was like lighting incense and dancing in my room. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I have an idea. I like write down the idea. I'm like, wow, cool. And then I'm like, doing my thing. And then I'm in the shower. I'm like, I have an idea. Oh my gosh, wait. And then I'm about to go to bed. I have more ideas. I'm like, I don't know if I just opened up a portal because I actually am starting to give myself self-care and things that I like need spiritually, mentally, like physically. But the moment I started to like open up that space to do that, like I felt like I was just like a portal to receive these ideas. And I was literally scribbling them on a post-it note. And then the next morning I was like, what is this? I'm like, oh my God, that's an idea I had. And I'm like, cool. I don't know if it's going to come to life, but like now I'm starting to like jot all that down so I can keep track of it. I think for me, I really believe in there is this other essence kind of coming into yourself when ideas and art and all this stuff takes place.
Rick Rubin love.
Right?
Oh my
I
God.
know. It's also in Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. That
Yeah. Mhm.
is such a good one that changed a lot for me.
I'm all goosebumpy over here. I was like getting choked up. Like it's so funny that this was brought up by this guy saying that, because to me it's just the epitome of an artist what you're doing. Especially for me specifically too, the spot of media, multidiscipline. The
Yeah.
fact that you were like, yeah, so porcelain is my medium right now. It's the first time I'm ever using it and I have a show next year. It takes such a specific special, and I'm not saying that in a exclusive way. I'm saying that in a way of like prioritizing and keeping that instinct sacred. That that like I have this idea, I have this a need for expression, and I'm gonna honor it regardless of what someone else says, regardless of what I need to do to make ends meet, regardless of uh materials. It's just going to come about, and then I would love this to happen, but if it doesn't, that's okay because this just needs to get made. There is nothing more true than that. There is nothing. And what makes me so sad is when I hear, especially, people with experience and people with prestigious titles and whatever, giving feedback that's so hard line to such a tender topic, and notably artists are very tender people for the most part, I'd say. And I think that it could be very easy to completely like derail someone that doesn't have such a strong tether to that. I
Yeah.
remember oh, like there was I had to get out. It was like I had to get out. It was like a Facebook group for like photography. I've completely removed myself from any photography industry stuff outside of this one membership I'm part of. That's amazing. But I don't know. I find it to be heavily toxic stuff. But there was this one, and it was for like photographers that are starting out. And this one person posted something, and she was like, hey, like some soft critique or whatever. I'm thinking that whatever she said. And this person, like, and I'm not even throwing shade and saying that there was malintent. It was just wrought with like, this is why this is not documentary. And if you wanted it to be documentary, you should have done it like this. And blah, 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 blah. And I was like, oh my God, this is her time. And I usually just like scroll on. But at this point, I was like, my God, no. So I wrote a diatribe of like how much I admired her approach and what I saw in it and whatever. But it's like,
Mhm.
you the whole beauty, of course, we all sometimes, most of us look at our early work and kind of cringe a little bit, but it had to happen. And
Yeah.
it went, if it's made and it's getting critiqued and there's all these walls being put up on it, then it completely
Yeah.
horse blinds you to your own voice, to your own instinct. And it's so detrimental. So I think for me, um, I find myself that anything that's said that's like blanket statements, I recoil because I
Mm-hmm.
think once again, the interdisciplinary stuff and the multimedia stuff and, and taking that out of art and into how we choose to live our lives
Yeah.
is so important. And we need to talk about it more
For sure.
because it's so easy to be like, this is irresponsible. This like you're like, I don't know where I'll be in 6 months. And I'm like, I feel the same and I have two fucking kids. And it's like so hard and scary, but also it's like
Oh,
I also don't want to be a mom that grows up and resents my children. And I don't want to feel like selfish for also honoring my work as another baby, And
Mhm.
I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And I think that like when you're in those, I don't know if it's just being an artist or just like my state, but yeah, being in just like states of transition and not knowing where I'm going to be in 6 months and also like being okay with that, like I think it maybe it depends on like day to day because it's like, oh, maybe I would want to know that. But at the same time, life the day to day is so unpredictable. Truly, you just never know what's going to happen. I know that's kind of meta and university, but you really don't. Like, you could, I got in a car accident the other day. Like, thank goodness that we're all fine and good. And like, there's just things happen every day that are unpredictable and you cannot plan. So, how are you supposed to plan or predict? At least I'm telling myself this, like 6 months ahead. And so that's why with this longing and this idea of, yeah, there is a fear attached. And there does take when it comes to like setting goals and maybe envisioning things. And there could be and should be maybe planning involved at some point. But honestly, all of that is just making me think, okay, longing is like teaching me a lesson. Like it's giving me some sort of lesson that maybe who I was when I was living in this place that I'm longing for is like what is it about that person that I miss? And like who was like I was surrounded by artists and creatives and people who inspired me. And I was like tingling with inspiration like often. And I was doing things for myself and I was journaling every day and I was immersing myself. I was trying new things all the time. I was around people with different cultures and diversity. So like now it's making me think like, okay, what are those lessons that I'm taking from that I don't feel here and how can I cultivate that here while I'm here?
Lava
So
Lamp Lounge, right? Like you're
probably,
calling in. You're recreating that.
yeah. Like, yeah, yeah. So I mean, and that's like, thank you for the affirmation. It's like, yeah, you are doing the things. And I think like the other night when I had that in-person meetup, and even though there was 5 of us, like we're strangers, I've never met these people in person. And it was like, okay, that was a sense of community. And I drove home that night in silence with just a big smile on my face. I'm like, this is why I was here. Like, not just to make my work and hold that sacred and make time for that, make time to be by myself and to like be playful and to like get the ideas and inspo, but also just like, yes, to like form this. Like, this felt so good. And I talked to some of the women there that were struggling to like meet people and make friends. And I was like, same. I've been living in Columbus for like a year and a half now, and I haven't really made friends to connect with and stuff. So like the other night, I was like, okay, but like now I'm starting to like piece this together. And from that, I was also inspired. I had this idea of doing like a 1 day retreat and doing like hiking, meditation, art making, tarot card sessions, like getting other people to collaborate with me to do this like inspiration retreat to like get us out of this like grind and hustle and to do things that might be like interesting and fun and inspiring. So a lot came from that, but yeah, just trying to like longing, lessons, being in the present and like doing what I can right now.
Holding it all loosely is so important. It's one of the holding it loosely as I have like my white knuckle grip on life. That I will forever be trying to be the person I am when I have a camera in my hand in my life, but I just somehow can't fucking marry the two people, like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Um,
Love it.
so I have this program called Conscious Creator, and holding it loosely is one of the principles. I base it off of like not any rules or frameworks for like how to do anything. It's just like you can borrow my philosophy. I have the like what is it, 12 of them. So it's philosophy because when you have a philosophy over a rule, it's somewhere to come from and expand from and have a home and a groundedness, but also to go from and deciding what feels good and what doesn't. And one of them is hold it loosely because in my experience, if you go in being like, this is my idea, I had this idea and this is what I want it to be, then you go into someone's house, like taking pictures, what I'm talking about, and you're looking for a specific type of light and you've never even been there before. So there could be something so much better So
Wow.
much like, and this is life, obviously a metaphor for life. It's like you've never been to in each moment that you've ever been, and there's something so much better, and you just can't see it. Or on the flip side, there's this like, oh, I see this corner. I know this light is gorgeous and delicious, and oh my God. But there is like an actual human experience situation happening right here. Like the kid fell, bruised his knee, the mom's comforting him, whatever. And so, like, who fucking cares about that light? Like, this is where it's happening. Like, no, it's
Yeah.
not in the best light, but like fucking make it work, you know? That's how living life gets to be when you are present in that way. Um, it's funny, the other day, it's crazy that you said that you got in a car accident, but I'm so glad you're okay.
Yeah.
I the other day got had my first ever car incident, and it was totally my fault, and it was so crazy because it was definitely like a teaching from the universe. I was going to a coffee shop to meet someone that like just graduated college and like just talk to them about, stuff they wanted to pick brains, whatever. And I was pulling into the parking lot, and I'm in my partner's truck, big ass truck, and I drive it all the time. Nothing's ever happened. And I'm driving in, and I have the beepers that are like beep, 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 beep. And, when you get too close, and I was doing it so slowly. I was like paying so much attention to that I had no idea the ass of the truck started to rub up against the back ass of the other car, like next to it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
all of a sudden I heard a squeak, and I'm like, what the fuck is that? And I was like, there is no way I'm touching that car right now. And I was. So like I scuffed the back of one car and dented our door, which left a note, the whole thing. It was terrible. Like I was, oh God.
Good
And
for you for leaving a note. Look at
oh
you.
my God. I was just so you would have thought I killed
Yeah.
someone. I was just so beside
Oh,
myself. Like I felt sick, and like my all my good girl stuff came up. I'm like, oh my God, and then she's gonna have to anyway.
yeah.
But I'm like, oh, what a metaphor. I was so intently being careful over there and looking at over there that I didn't see
Yeah.
that happening. And oh my God, just so much. And then it's like this other element of like of this feeling that happens when something goes wrong while I'm being careful. It just gives me this wild, out of control feeling. Like no matter what I do, I can't trust it to be okay. It would have been better if I was fucking like I don't know, just like in a hurry or whatever.
Right.
I was being careful, and it still happened,
Ooh,
and that fucks me up.
goodness. Oh, yeah, because mine was like, I'm also like, the universe is teaching me a lesson. I need to slow down. I need to chill. I need to really be present. But like, yeah, with you, you were being very careful and present with one thing, but that doesn't mean that something else.
Hmm.
Yeah, wow. That's wild. And like, I mean, as a human too, like there's only so much presence. I mean, you could have presence with one thing and something else could be happening and
Yeah.
all this stuff. And yeah, it just makes me think a lot about noticing and awareness and presence. And sometimes you can't also do all of it. Or,
No, no. Open palms, open palms.
for sure.
But yeah, there's openness to pivot and receive and to receive these lessons in the shit of it and to be like,
Yeah.
okay, what's happening? Like, not that we're always kumbaya about it, but also be
Oh,
able to read those layers and then move accordingly.
yeah, it's made me think a lot about intention, like intentional noticing, intentional awareness, and like when it comes to meditation, like something I read recently, I picked up this book. This was kind of weird. So I
I have that on Audible.
do you? This is wild. So this is just a little story, side note. But I walked into this art center that's an old school. People live there that aren't artists, but there's also art studios. And I walked in, I was just wandering, and there was like a bookshelf with like a ton of free shit. And there was just a little sign that said like all free, take it. I was like, cool, I love free stuff. I'm looking through and I saw this book and I was like, cool, I'll take this, but I'll like probably use it for collage, I'll rip it out, whatever. Sweet. I ripped out one page and I don't know what I used it for. I don't remember, but I've been starting to listen to, like Rick Rubin, that book. And I listened to him on a podcast with Jay Shetty. Um, It's called on the podcast is called On Purpose, but it was like an interview with him about his new book. And they like talked about meditation and this whole thing, all these ideas. And, Jay Shetty asked him, what can you tell our listeners if they're, just starting out to meditate or they've never done it before, like whatever. And he's like, honestly, pick up the book. Wherever you go, there you are. And immediately I'm like, I have that book. I'm like, no way. Yes, cool. And I'm like, that was months ago, dude. So now in my mind, I've already got the book. I'm listening to this. I'm thinking about what is meditation? How can I do this? How can I like weave this in? And I was thinking about using this for collage. I'm like, no, this is now a book that I need to digest and whatever. And I'm very, very small into it, but something that they're talking about is just like meditation could look like sitting there and like, being in your zen and like trying to actually meditate. But it can also just looks like moments of rest and like intentional noticing and slowing down and like mindfulness. And something that Rick Rubin said the other day, like in my audiobook, listening to him, is just like even the active meditation could be waking up in the morning and taking 3 intentional deep breaths, like before you get out of bed, before you do this, like just having a moment with your body and breathing and being like, I'm alive, I'm here, whatever it is. And it's something I've thought about recently because, I'll wake up, I'll hear my dogs, and I know that I need to take care of them. I know I need to let them out, feed them, they're ready to go. And so there's a lot of days where I just roll out of bed, I like whatever, put on a sweatshirt and I like do that. And I've been really rethinking those moments in the morning and being like, wait, I am waking up and taking care of another thing. I'm not waking up and thinking about what do I need to do? Is it stretching? Because I have a lot of back pain, my scoliosis, people out there, that's me. But, even just waking up and like taking a deep breath and not looking at my screen on my phone or anything, right? So it's made me think a lot about, yeah, what are those moments of meditation, of rest, of just coming back to myself that I could give myself before I take care of another person. But like dog, in my case, it's a dog. I could not even imagine a child, right? Because that's a whole nother thing. But yeah, like, oh my gosh, that's something that I've been definitely thinking about lately is those moments of rest and coming back into your body and taking a pause, and those lessons are huge.
I
But
think that for me, so that exactly. And for me, when I hear that, I think about how something that I talk a lot about is not weaponizing gratitude. And I recently came to the realization that I feel like I've weaponized the term and my experience of intentionality. Like it started out as this beautiful thing, and then all of a sudden, somewhere along the line, it became this thing where it was something I was not measuring up against enough. I'm like, I wasn't intentional enough. I wasn't blah, blah. And it's like, no, it can be just 3 breaths in the morning. It doesn't have to be this like deeply you went somewhere else and you had made this breakthrough and whatever. Let it be what it is. And I think that I've been putting so much pressure on that I've kind of like sucked the whatever out of it. So I'm kind of like reintroducing myself to this concept and letting myself let go of the term, because for me the term has turned into this heavy thing, which
yeah,
I don't know where along the line it has, but it has. I think
when maybe that happens with just like sitting with a word so much and like with it, like I
yeah.
totally feel that. Like I can see how gratitude would be like a word that's just it's like hyper used and talked about. And if you're
Oh.
overly, I've heard of like over digestion of certain things too. And I could see how
Mm,
it could, you got to hold it loosely a little bit.
yes.
Yeah.
Especially like that's big for mothers too, weaponizing like I should be grateful that my kid is not blah blah blah, or I should be grateful that I have them. I should be grateful. It's like, okay, yeah, of course I'm grateful that I wasn't on the Titanic, but like what does that have to do with this moment? It's hard.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah,
uh,
exactly.
I think Rick Rubin's like a sorcerer, because I also had a crazy experience with it. I was like avoiding the book because I knew I had heard a podcast interview with him, and it was one of those moments where you feel like dizzy with like, oh yes, oh my God, I've never heard a human say this out loud before, that I know this and I feel like this. And so I was like, oh my gosh, this is too close and I don't want to listen to it before I have a chance to, like, I don't know, journal out of me. Like it felt too, and
Oh,
so silly. So I was avoiding the book. And then a really dear friend and client of mine had sent me for no reason a gift in the mail. And I opened the mailbox and I saw the envelope and I just immediately, we had not talked about it at all. I was like, she sent me the Rick Rubin book. I fucking know it. And I opened it and I was like, my mouth was on the floor. I'm like, I cannot believe this. Like, so I was like, I give in, I will read it, I will. And I'm so glad I did. Like, oh my God, that was so dumb to avoid it.
yes, I've been very nerdily like taking the physical book super slow. Like I have my little pen and I'm circling things, I'm making
Yes.
notes. I'm like, but then I also was just like, all right, I'm just gonna get this like request the audiobook on my Libby app, and it was made available. So I'm like, I'm gonna listen to it without taking notes, without pausing, without trying to think too much about these concepts, because I feel like a lot of it I also feel so connected to, like he says in the beginning, like a lot of these things could be things that you already know. It's already inside of you and it's just coming, unfolding and coming up. And it's what, I'm like, all of it is all it feels so familiar and connected and spiritual. Like there's so much to it. It feels like heavy and beautiful and light at the same time. Um, but that's why I'm like, the book has felt like I carry it with me everywhere and I don't even really open it except sometimes and I'll read a little bit and then close it. But the
My God.
audio has been cool because I'm just like listening to it and I'm just like, yes, Rick. Yes.
Yes. I know, I do the same thing. I cannot read without a pen. Cannot. And I also, if I really love a book and I started listening to it audible, I pause and I get the physical book because I need to take it in visually. But I also sometimes double listen to the, well, who wouldn't want to listen to Rick's voice? Like, oh my God, it's the best voice ever.
Oh,
If you like this book though, you have to read not that they're similar, but like just the spirit of it. Oh my God. Have you heard of Mark Nepo? He's a poet and a writer. Mark Nepo, Drinking from the River of Light. Oh
oh,
my
yay.
God. He was doing an artist talk at a library in Kalamazoo, Michigan, I think. And I wanted to drive over so bad, but I couldn't get childcare that day. But it is
Ooh.
about like uh artists and like making art in the world and life and art. I was reading it crying at like 6:30 a.m. on a flight. I'm like, I didn't think I had tears at that early in the morning. I didn't think I gave a shit about anything that early in the
Right.
morning.
Oh my
It's,
gosh.
it's so good.
Oh,
It's
and
so good.
like it's truly, these books, these things that we digest that do shape us and just also are just reminders of I feel like I already knew this.
Yes.
Now I'm just, yeah, hearing it in a different way or hearing someone else process it. And I'm like, yes, this makes sense.
It's so funny that it's like this weird feeling of like, who am I to feel like I don't my favorite photographer ever. He's since passed, but I heard him speak in an interview, and at the same time that I was like, "Oh my God, I've never heard such beautiful words." Deep inside, I'm like, "This sounds so fucking vain," but I feel like I already know what he's gonna say because this is my brain. I
Yeah.
think this, and also, how dare I say that? He's so, like, so it's like
Right.
that weird feeling of like, I know this, and also I'm so thankful someone else is saying it, but also I'm so connected to it.
Yes. And I feel like there's just like a lightning bolt with that, and it's just like this moment, like even listening to the Rick Rubin book thing today, like he was talking about experimentation and an idea as a seed and how you're just like trying things and going for it. Like you're, not thinking about fear and all this other stuff, but you're just trying stuff and go. I'm like, yes, this is exactly what it is. There's so much fear about making things or trying a new medium or going forth with an idea and all this stuff. And this all this concept, all this some of these concepts aren't new. I feel like it's just it takes someone else to like bring a metaphor to them or bring a visual and for you to just be like, yes, this is it. I know this to be true. And it feels so good in that way. Another book you'll have to write down, I don't know if you've heard about it, but it's called The Way of Integrity by Martha Beck. Martha Beck is
I've heard of her, not the way of integrity.
yeah, She's really cool. But the way her book, The Way of Integrity, which I believe it only came out like maybe 1 or 2 years ago, but I listened to that first as an audiobook, and then it was the same thing that you said. I like bought the book. I'm like, I need the physical. But that was a really amazing book, just about like what is your truth, like living in your integrity, what that even means. And yeah, it made me like rethink just like how am I showing up in the world? Who am I? What is my truth? And she like frames it in a way of using like Dante's Inferno,
Mm.
that whole storyline. It's really it's interesting. It's a must in my world. So if you ever get around to it.
I will
But
definitely. I think that it's so, and I think this is very full circle with what we're
yeah.
talking about because, like, these people that have, like, even what you said about Rick, it's like these concepts aren't new, but you're like, I'm so beyond thankful and I feel so seen and I feel that lightning bolt reading this right now from him. And I think it's hard oftentimes to fathom that you can be that for someone else too, but it's so important, and I found that more directly, I think more specifically with me just vulnerably sharing about my experience with postpartum or whatever, um, the few messages here and there of people saying like, "Oh my god, thank you for saying that,"
Hmm.
is so yeah, there's just nothing like it. I don't even wanna say it's, like, the best feeling. It's just, like, feels otherworldly. It's like, "Of course, I this is important, and this is, like, our work. Of course your work, your impulse, your intimate, private, random idea that you got while you were dancing around your apartment for no reason, who knows how that could change someone's life just because you're acting on that purity of that feeling of lightning. You're like, "Okay, this. Don't know why." It's like, recently I was talking about, it's not, "I'll believe it when I see it." It's like the whole thing is believing it until you see it because, like, those are the things that are the best thing, the most right things. So it's like, with your service project, you didn't say like, "Oh, this must or this will be." You're like, "I'd love that to be in a gallery. And also I believe in this project and I'm doing it regardless. I'm not going to do it only if I get a show."
Right. Like
Um
I'm going to make this art no matter what because it needs to be made.
exactly. For no other reason than because I said so.
Yep.
Like, that's
100%. And then like
amazing.
my biggest, I like talk about this in my artist talks and stuff, but like the biggest, most surprising thing that happened from making that body of work. And that was like the most vulnerable work that I've ever made. Like ever. I'm talking about my personal experience, my trauma, like the microaggressions, like some really deep stuff that was really like only personal. Like when I was making the work, it was just me, 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 me. But like when sharing it, the biggest shock was people messaging me and just being like, oh my gosh, this is, yes, like I've been there, I've worked here. I might have not, like or I'm like a massage therapist and I hear this said, these uncomfortable things said to me, or like even, someone was like, I'm a transgender person and like this has happened to me, or I'm, all of these experiences, like it's really just words, right? And like maybe uncomfortable situations, like the power of words, all this stuff. But I was just like, whoa, like now I'm just feeling this, yeah, like lightning bolts of connectedness. And then the work became less about the actual work, but more about this share your story wall. So whenever I have exhibited this artwork, a big thing that I share with galleries is that like part of it is the share your story wall. So there's an opportunity for anyone who views the work to write anything, share your story,
Mm.
like whatever that means for them. It doesn't need to be connected to that work at all. It could just be share whatever that is. And they post it. And then I've gone in and done like performances where I've read the stories out loud and I've stitched them together like physically and just
Oh my god, that's amazing.
yeah. And so that was the second time I've done this year. I did this and I was expecting, like, it was a scheduled performance. I drove 2.5 hours to Youngstown. I was
Mm.
expecting maybe there to be 5 people. I was like, maybe 5 people will come. Maybe not. Maybe it's just me. And like, this is me in the work. And like, that's
Mhm.
good enough. I'm doing this for me. And then I show up and there was a full room of people,
Oh
like
my
30
god.
people
That's
there. I was just like,
awesome.
okay, all right. And I addressed the crowd and talked about how this share your story wall is as important as the work itself. And these words, no matter what they are, deserve to take up space. They deserve to be heard. And that's why we're here, is to
Mm,
hear these words. And I'm
mm,
going to be stitching to them together on the wall to make a physical visual that we are connected. Like this is a connected, one threaded thing that we are
mm,
here together. And I read every single one of the stories out loud. And I mean, it was so powerful. It
mm,
like, and I was so like, it really was like a connection. Me and the work, like I forgot that there were 30 people behind me, and it was dead silence the whole time, And then, at the end, I invited people to come up, to look close, to continue to add to the wall. And I just like thanked everyone for their respect. And people were coming up to me after, Bianca, and they were
yeah.
like, they were
I'm like
crying.
gonna cry right now.
Yeah, they were crying, and they told me that was so brave of you. And I was just like, oh my gosh, thank you. I don't see that as like an act of bravery, or to maybe keep composed and just to read these things, but like the connection to other people and the art that comes from making your most vulnerable work, or just making the work that you need to make, like to me was the most surprising but most beautiful thing that had ever come out of making this series, that I again had no expectation of. And it's been, a wild ride because of that. It's been amazing, but it's amazing that we're making the artwork that we feel we need to make and are going to make, can have that valuable connection to another human, or a bunch of other humans, or just one person that
Mm-hmm.
could just see it for what it is. And it's an affirmation. And that is, like you were mentioning, is the most beautiful feeling that's not describable.
Yeah.
Is
Mm-hmm.
like a little lightning bolt. I drove home like 2.5 hours, like probably in silence. And I was just like, wow, that's why I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
That is like so powerful than anything you could imagine when it comes to art. And that's what makes it worth it, right?
Mm-hmm.
To
Yeah.
show up and to do that stuff and to connect
And
with.
those moments are some of the most important things that can happen in life, period, full stop. And your pain and your vulnerability and your whatever, it was, you gave it the opportunity to transform into something else. So, like, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't want to speak for you, but like, it sounded like it became less charged after you completed it because the focus became the empowerment of the viewer and what happened when someone else was like, oh my God, me too, and was able to connect with that. And then they contributed to it. So do you feel like now the work, you aren't as connected with that feeling of angst or whatever that came from creating it, but more now is like, okay, I'm looking for how this has breathed air and like openness into others?
Yes, 100%. The work when I was making it, when I, showed it, when I completed the 100, it was like the process of making it was like my personal charge and
Mhm.
energy. But then the transformation into this like share your story wall and this connection to other humans, even in the gallery spaces, the conversations being had, the artist
Mhm.
talk, that connection is where the power is really feeling energetic and like driving home.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's so surprising. I would have never expected any of that to happen. But yeah, it's amazing how the transfers of energy definitely occur in that way. And right now I'm making a work about my hormonal birth control experience. And it feels very, very personal. I want to make, well, I've made, like I want to make, I am making made like recreated the birth control packets out of porcelain, and I'm going to recreate the pills that I've digested. And right now I'm making like other things that have to do with it, like different clocks and different ways to like symbolize and visualize this experience for myself. But because of that, and working in a studio with majority are all women who are, most of them are retired, but they're just like, what are you making? And then people just start sharing about their experience. They're like, oh my gosh, I tried an IUD and I felt like I almost died. And like, I tried this. And then the more I'm just starting to share about this work, especially having those like more in-person conversations, people are like, oh, what art are you working on? I'm like, I'm making this. And I feel kind of like, And my mom, even like I saw my mom this past weekend, she's like, I heard you're mixing your menstrual blood with glaze. And I'm like, yeah, mom, it's an experiment. Like, and she's just like, and I'm like, Mom, like, but understand me, you know what I mean? But so it's been, I think I need to really step in more in my confidence of like talking about the work. And I have in some ways, but like it's opened up a portal of vulnerability.
Yes.
Strangers that I've never met are just like pouring out their experience to me. And I'm like, it's all valid.
Mhm.
Whether you love birth control is your thing and it's working for your body and it's doing the thing, like you deserve to have that. Everyone deserves to have their right to what they need. But there's also been so many experiences that have been very sensitive and different, and like mine is an example of that. So part of the work that I'm making now, it's kind of like shifted my mind to like, how can I make this a part of a community public installation project? So I'm thinking about this like period postcard project,
Mm.
period postcard like thinking about ways where people can share their experiences and it be a part of this exhibition, because it does connect to others. So I'm trying to like already give space for that when making this new body of work.
Like preemptively versus like the surprise of it in the
Yeah.
past. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
It's
And I
like,
think people like in the space, like in person, I'm going to try to make that a part of it. Like if they see the work and they would like to share their story,
yeah.
there will be an opportunity to do that. Um, but yeah, I'm trying to like visualize it right now, like what it could be.
Yeah, it's
Because
like
so
a
much,
moth to a flame, like what you're saying. Like, I totally, as you're saying that, I'm like, I totally see you in the studio making, and someone being like, "What are you making?" Oh, when I blah blah blah. It's just so natural. It's just like when someone it. Sometimes people ask like, "How do you make such emotive imagery? Like, how do you?" But and it's like you go there first. Like you just you can't make anyone do anything, but like if you show up first, like, there is this element if someone is open to coming and meeting you where you are. So you're like, here's where I am. I'm not like hanging out. Sometimes you could talk about the weather, but like, I'm making a project on with my period blood. Like, oh, really? Oh my gosh, actually, it's like so it's like a mirroring that
yeah, we're
happens.
already going there,
We're already
like,
going there. So
it
let's
makes me
go.
think of like you stepping into people's homes and like that
Mhm.
being a vulnerable experience in and of itself. Like you're a stranger and now you're here and now you're in the
Mhm.
home and now you're
Mhm.
a part of this thing. And like the fact that you could step in that space and just you're there, you're comfortable. And
Mhm.
like I think, yeah, that it's cool how art, whether it be photography or this or whatever it is, like poetry, even books and writings, like there's a space where it just becomes this like portal of vulnerability and like the barriers are broken and now we're here.
Yeah,
Like,
moths to flames, like just whoosh. And what
yeah.
you're saying about even the service industry project, it's like what we were talking about, how just saying the thing and putting it, like even in now podcasting, just like saying the thing and putting it out there. It comes from this very intimate personal space. I'm in my basement. We're looking face to face at each other. I'm talking to microphone in a black basement, whatever. And then whoever's listening to this in their ears, like who knows what their experience is or how if they've never heard someone talk about this before, if they're like, okay, yeah, I've heard this, like, okay, they probably already skipped out already. But like it doesn't matter. What matters is the truth of it in that moment and being able to just know and believe, even though you can't see them, that you speaking your truth is so deeply serving and inspiring for other people and wanting people to feel less alone. And I think that that's why community and being able to be honest and connective, it seems to be such a priority for both of us. And like what you do with Lava Lamp Lounge and like what I'm doing with Sacred Seeing, it's like this, it's so crucial because it's so hard to be in this position. Like the other day, full, like, have a total, but I just had a wailing cry moment where I was just like, I feel so unsafe all of the time. I am at like this end. I know, like, I don't know what's next, but like something has to change in order to like keep what's good for me, like, okay, and to keep me okay. And I think that it's already such an isolating experience to be like what you said. Look, what are you working on with period? Usually there's only one in the family of an artist. Usually there's not multiple artists in the family. When you're isolated in that way, even though we absolutely love the people around us, but when you can't meet at that frequency, if you can't meet at that very specific level of speaking about something, then it's scary and it's lonely.
Right.
And it can be really easy to just be like, fuck this, I can't do this
Yeah.
anymore, and to exit this way of life. But with that comes such, depending on what you need and your truth or whatever, it can be such a disservice to you and your life and your expression and whatever. So I'm just so passionate about having these conversations and the realness of
Yes.
this. And I mean, I just had
Yeah.
someone like an old college friend that was just said something, and she made this assumption of like, oh my God, you must be like just so booked out like for the next like 5 years. I'm like, not at all. Like, not at all. What?
Yeah.
And I'm like someone who is very honest and out there, and she
Right.
still thinks that. It's like there's
Hmm.
so much smoke and
Yeah.
mirrors in this way of life. And it's so important to be honest. And I'm so grateful for you and your honesty and what you share and just being here and having this conversation.
Thank you. Yeah. And something it reminded me of is this like idea of frequencies and maybe my mom and I are at like this, trying to understand each other's frequencies, but like being around people, connecting with others, whether it's like this conversation or finding people in your physical local community to be in person with, or connect, like reaching out to those people that you have that frequency with, of like maintaining that connection, even in like a consistent way, because there is a feeling of maybe being at this like frequency or however you imagine your own energy. And like, I know when I'm like with other people who are kind of matching that, I'm like, okay, like I feel this inside of me, I feel like even more confident, more inspired, like I push myself in different ways and all this other stuff. And I've been struggling to find those people locally. Like I'm right now, like, trying to, connect with it. And I'm kind of, I feel like my gears are turning a little bit, but it's definitely a reminder of when I've been around people that are movers and shakers and like want to like put things together and bring things together and be vulnerable, and like even friendships, like when they right away like get vulnerable, I'm like, yes, okay, like it's like I've talked to you my whole life, like let's go, let's do this. But it fuels that in a really cool way. And someone mentioned in my Lava Lamp Lounge group during this support group that we have every Monday night, of they just came back from a yoga retreat in a different country. I'm forgetting where, but they just came back and they're like, I want to be around higher frequency people. And I'm like, whoa, yes, like that. I feel that, like, I think that's an important part of being an artist, a creative, at least I'm speaking for myself, is finding those people, and spending more time around them, because I feel those little lightning bolts. I feel like myself be heard in a way, or like swap ideas, or like just talk about artwork, maybe in a different way. Like this one artist came in the ceramic studio and she was preparing for this whole like exhibition, like solo show at the sculptural center. She was working with big sculptures of bread. Like she was baking bread, massive bread, and like wrapping it around fabric. And it was all this like body and texture and goo. And like she talks about like flesh and just like the body. And I was just like, whoa, like tell me more. Like, yes, like I'm thinking about that with porcelain and that being connected to the body and its qualities. And when I feel that like excitement of hearing someone else talk about that stuff, I'm just like, I get you. Like I don't know you, but I understand.
I
I
feel
kind
like a little kid whenever I'm with someone like that. I feel like,
of
yeah, and
no, it's truly like fangirling. I'm like, can I follow you?
yeah.
Like DM'd her. I'm like, great conversation. If you're ever local, let me know. But I was just like, I would love to find other people that are exhibiting and talking about that
Yeah,
stuff. And like, let's get together and talk about this stuff. And like, I don't know. So
yeah.
it's wonderful to have that affirmation of like, yes, there are other people out there that are doing this work. and find those people, or at least like find those high frequency people and spend more time with them, you know?
Yeah. If not only for that lightning bolt motivating, inspiring, collaborative like validation in the most excited way, like also in the almost more importantly in the way of like when I feel like what the fuck am I doing with my life? You
Yeah.
have that life
Yeah.
raft of like, hey, me too.
Yeah.
Hey, me too. Are
Not
you okay?
okay.
I'm not okay. Okay, you're okay. All right. Like I just don't feel
Like,
like an alien in my own life right now because I know I've made eye contact with someone that is sharing my experience and it's
yes.
so fucking important. Like so important. Morgan, we could talk forever, obviously. Thank you so much. I could cry. I'm so excited to just have this and talk to you. Please let us know where we can follow you. It'll be in the show notes and where you can find Lava Lamp Lounge and all the things.
Yes. I would say Instagram is a great place to follow me. It's just Morgan Bukovic, my first and last name. And please, yeah, check out Lava Lamp Lounge. It is also on Instagram, and we host Monday night meetups, a slow making session where you can just come and create anything just to like hold yourself accountable to make something or clean out your art space or journal.
Mhm.
We also host a support group right after that for artists and creatives that follows The Artist Way by Julia Cameron, but also is just open-ended as well. So yeah, check them out on Instagram. That's where you can follow all this stuff. But thanks for having me on. Always love chatting with you about this stuff. I definitely feel a sense of just feeling heard and seen, and just good reminder, to just keep going. Right?
My God. Yes. Yes.
Keep
Yes.
going.
I have to add the whole reason why we even know each other is because I was in a coffee shop, like so random. I used to have a photo studio and I was at a coffee shop or juice place, whatever. And
Yeah.
I saw Morgan's art on the wall. It was like a collage piece. And
Oh,
I was just like, oh God, I
didn't
have
you
love
buy
this.
it? I
Yeah.
think you,
I
yeah.
bought it. And then I came back and I was like, oh, I wonder who this is. And I looked her up and I was like, she's local, which I don't know why I was so surprised because your heart was hanging in a local shop. But like in my mind, like no one lives near me ever. And I was like, oh my God,
I
ever.
know. No, and then we met for coffee.
Yeah.
And it's funny because you like bring up like you're like, I'm an introvert. I'm like, yeah, but we're like this. I feel that way too. I'm like, okay, I definitely have that introvert, but I'm just like, yeah, okay, this is good. Like I'm
Hmm.
just talking to a friend and we're strangers. So it's just been so good connecting, and I feel that like higher level of frequency, like when we're just chatting about this stuff, like even us going back and forth with the Voxes, I'm just like, okay, this is why I'm here, just to talk about this stuff and
This
to
is a
like have
microcosm of what we're talking about with the
that.
art, with Lava Lamp. Like, oh my God, we're so like meta right now. We're like, I'm like dizzy. I'm like, oh my God,
I
we've been
know.
doing it all along.
I'm like, take your intentional deep breaths, go on a walk, feel that gratitude.
People
Dance
listening, all
around
right.
your like, yeah, dance around your home, get ideas, light some incense. It works. But thanks so much for having me on, Bianca. I love what you're doing, and everything you're creating is inspiring to me, and just glad to have you in my circle.
Oh my God. I'm so fucking glad that I've come across you and that we're connected. Thank you so much.
This has been an Awkward Sage production.